Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight? Do you feel like you're constantly starting over with your nutrition and fitness? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse, and I too have been there. At the age of 44, I decided I was done with being stuck in the vicious diet cycle. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best Formula for women who are ready to do things differently. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, get your energy back, build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good, then you're in the right place. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's build your formula for feeling your best. Hello, everyone. A few announcements before we get into the heart of today's episode. This is the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. I am Lil. And first of all, I just want to thank you for showing up here every week, tuning in, sharing my podcast with your friends, leaving me reviews and sending me messages, letting me know how much you enjoy it and how much it's helped you. It means so much to me. And I just can't even put into words how much this podcast has helped me grow in my own personal journey. And that's all because you guys listen, and it motivates me to keep going, to keep learning, to keep finding new solutions and sharing it with you. So first, a few announcements. Number one, I'm so excited. After, over a year of coaching my clients and hearing from you guys which podcast episodes really speak to you, I realized I really wanted to put together something that would just help you get started. Getting started is the hardest part. 100% of my clients tell me this. They say, I just don't know where to begin. It's confusing. I don't know what to do. I need this step-by-step guidance so that I can just put one foot in front of the other. And sometimes that very first step that we take, taking action, it is the most difficult part of the process. And then once we can get going, we can build momentum. So what I've done is I've put together a very special free 3-day macro kickstart challenge for you. If you've been listening to the podcast, if you've maybe tried counting macros on your own, if you've listened to, the things I talk about on the podcast and you've kind of tried to dabble and do things, but you've kind of gotten stuck or you're not confident that you're doing things right, this free 3-day kickstart lays it all out for you. It's the first 3 days of getting started with your macros. And I just think you're going to find this so helpful. You can access this immediately with the link below in the episode details. Just click on it, put in your information, click, get instant access, done. And once you have access to it, you're also going to get any future updates. I know that this is something that I'm going to continuously improve and add more videos to and things like that. I'll add more like grocery lists, and because if you listen to this podcast, I'm always improving and leveling up the way I'm doing things. And I know that the way I do things today is not necessarily going to be the way I'm doing things in 6 months or a year. So once you have access to the 3-day kickstart, if there's anything that I'm finding helpful that I really think is going to help someone who's in that beginning phase, then I'm going to add it to that. I'll make sure to send you an email telling you that there's an update in there. So it's like once you have access, you're just going to continuously be getting more resources to help you move forward, towards your goals. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, free 3-day kickstart. Action is where the magic happens. You can listen to podcasts all day, you can watch YouTube videos, you can scroll on Instagram. Nothing's going to change in your life until you actually just take that first step. All right, that's my first announcement. Now, my second announcement, I'm also incredibly excited about this. This is another freebie for you. I've collaborated with my friend Emily Reamer. You probably remember her from episode 83 on the podcast. She's a burnout recovery coach. And we just realized we have so much in common. Our clients have so much in common that we decided to collaborate with some incredible experts in the health and wellness field. And we've put together this mini podcast summit. And this is geared towards you if you are ready to start fresh, if you're over 40 and you just are really feeling like, oh my gosh, I really need to start taking control of my health. And we have just the best group of experts for you. We have a sober living coach. We have someone that's going to talk about fashion and style and fitness. And obviously, I'm going to talk about nutrition, and Emily's going to talk to you about mindset and all the things. It's just going to be awesome. So we're not done putting it together completely. We still have to dot some I's and cross some T's, but I want you to stay tuned because this is just going to be awesome. And especially as we head into September, the kids get back to school, you're getting out of the season of summer where maybe your schedule is a little chaotic and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get back into a routine with fall. This is going to be perfect for you because you're going to be able to listen to these experts, take their ideas, and start adding some of those things into your new routine for fall. So whether you feel like you're completely starting from scratch, or maybe you've already got some great habits that work for you and you're like me and you're just like, I just want to keep leveling up, then you are going to need to tune into this mini audio summit. Okay, so I'll have more details and I'll make sure to announce that here on the podcast feed when that is ready to go. It will also be in my newsletter, so stay tuned. And then number 3, I was just talking about my newsletter list, and if you're on my newsletter list, then you already have kind of heard about this because I mentioned it on my newsletter list. But long story short, I'm finally working on a really big project. This is something that I've been thinking about and wanting to do for a very, very, very long time. And I'm finally doing it. I hired a business coach to help me launch this, and I'm so excited. I'm not going to tell you what the details are yet, but when it's done, I am just going to be so proud and so excited to be offering this as a resource to you. But in the meantime, I am dialing things back. Number 1, of course, supporting my clients is always my top priority in my business. And then in addition to supporting my clients, obviously I have content creation, creating this podcast, showing up on social media, sending my newsletter. And because I'm going to be hyper focused on getting this project done, I am going to be putting the podcast on hiatus and my Instagram account on pause. So for the month of August 2024, that's when this is being released, you're not going to see me on Instagram, and there will be no new full podcast episodes. I will be doing like a quick little podcast episode letting you know when things are being announced. So make sure to stay subscribed. Do not unfollow my show. Don't unsubscribe. And yes, the podcast will be back in action once I get this project completed. But I have learned that when you spread yourself thin, when you try to do all the things, the quality can suffer. And of course, it will take me longer to get this done. And I want it to be the best quality. And I want it to get done as quickly as possible. I have sort of a penciled in date of August 31st when I want to be ready to launch this. But if that does not happen, I just I want to have flexibility so that I can get it done and it's going to be amazing for you. So, the best way to make sure you stay connected to any announcements that I might have or updates is to make sure you are subscribed to my newsletter. If you're not subscribed, you can see that link right in the episode details, because my newsletter is like the heart and soul of where I share everything. On my Instagram, you may or may not, only like 5% of people see anything that is posted on Instagram by people you follow. So it's not guaranteed that you're going to see anything that I post on Instagram, and I'm not going to be posting on Instagram at all until probably September timeframe. So my newsletter is where you want to be. I promise I don't spam you. I send at most one email per week. I have a little welcome series right when you subscribe to the newsletter, but once you go through those 3 or 4 emails, then at most I'm going to be emailing you once a week. And I love my newsletter list. You guys are awesome. And honestly, it's like almost getting a mini blog post when I do email you. It's full of great stuff. So that is where you can find me. The best way to connect with me is to either message me through Buzzsprout where it says send Lil a message. You can click on there, or just email me, lil@liliuslewis.com. That information is in the episode details. Okay, I feel like I just ran through all these housekeeping items, and we need to dive into the reason that you clicked on this episode, because you want to know what are the 20 best foods for reaching your weight loss goals. And I know I'm doing this at my own peril, because I know there's a chance some of you are going to get mad at me, right? Like you're going to be a little pissed. Why? Because this is where I'm going to tell you that you need to step up. You need to be part of the process. And this is going to be a little collaboration between you and me today on this episode. I know sometimes we just want someone to hand us a list, hand us a meal plan. And if that worked, you would not be listening to this episode right now, because you've done that before, haven't you? Right? You've signed up for a diet plan. They've been like, oh, eat this, don't eat that, eat this amount of this, eat that amount of this, never eat this, always eat this. And look at where you are. You're sitting here right now clicking on a podcast episode that is telling you the 20 best foods to eat for weight loss, right? Because that did not work. When you were a passive participant in your own health and wellness, it did not work. So I'm going to ask you to step up. I'm going to ask you to listen to this episode. Maybe you're driving in the car, folding laundry, whatever you're doing. Listen to it first, and then listen again with a pen and paper in hand, because this is all about taking action. So I'm walking you through on this episode how to create the 20 best foods for your weight loss. All right. And always keep in mind, there is nuance and personalized preference that go into your Feel Your Best formula. And that's why cookie cutter approaches don't work, right? Because they're not about you. It's because someone decided they were going to put together this diet plan and they did not have you in mind. The only thing they had in mind was the money they were going to make when they sold it to you. And I'm going to give you the template of how to find your 20 best foods, because you can change things around. You might change your mind. And this is all going to be a bit of an experiment at first, right? Like if you think that you're always going to have things perfect on the first try, you're always going to end up disappointed. And there's so much pride and excitement that happens when you are an active participant and you finally find that thing that really, really works for you. So, okay. Are you ready? If you don't have your pen and paper, like I said, listen through, then come back at a time where it's like safe for you to sit down and just you could fast forward to the point where we start this process here. I'm not going to try to take credit here. This is something I learned from Alan Aragon He's like the godfather of macros. I've mentioned him on here before. Definitely recommend following him on Instagram. And I subscribe to his research review. I get sent that every month, the best research in nutrition, fitness, health and wellness, all those things. So he knows what he's talking about. And I thought this was just such great. Sometimes we think of scientists as not really having an understanding of our day-to-day lives, and they're saying this is the best, do this, don't do that, whatever. But what we really need as individuals is ways that we can follow through on those recommendations that are actually sustainable and work for our daily lives. So I saw him in an interview with someone else, and he was talking about this process, and just this big light bulb went off in my head that I needed to share it with you guys, because I thought to myself, okay, this is actually what I do, but the way that he created this template for it that I'm going to walk you through, it's just really, really easy, and it's really going to simplify the process for you. So here's how it goes. Number one, we have to recognize that when it comes to nourishing our bodies and eating a balanced diet, we need to look at these 6 different food groups. I'm not talking about the food groups we learned about, the food guide pyramid that we all learned about in home ec in middle school. That food pyramid has actually been abolished. Nobody recommends that anymore. Remember, it was like all the bread and everything at the very bottom of the pyramid. We've learned that is not the key to a balanced diet. So instead, I'm going to talk about the food groups that, like I said, the experts in the field of nutrition and fitness, science-based, this is what they're saying. People who eat diets that include these food groups in a balanced way have the best overall health outcomes, body recomposition, metabolic health, etc., etc. So this is probably going to sound a little bit new to you, but these food groups we've got the high protein foods, we've got our healthy fats, we've got our vegetables, and I'm talking about the, green, leafy, or cruciferous vegetables. That this is your lettuce, your kale, your broccoli, your cauliflower. These foods are often low in calories, but very high in nutrients, those types of vegetables, okay? And then we have our starches, which might include some vegetables as well, like butternut squash, or potatoes, but then we're also talking about pasta, beans, things like that. Then we're talking about our milk-based foods, because calcium is really important. Milk-based foods are the great source of calcium, especially for us women. So you might also think of these as, dairy-based foods. And then we have our fruits, and then our little 7th, bonus little food group here is those foods that are not as nourishing for our bodies, but that we really love. This is what we want to, I hate to use this word, but like junk food, treats. I don't know. You can really get into the semantics of what we call all these different foods, but you know what I'm talking about here, right? So these 6 food groups that nourish our body, they contain the macro and the micronutrients that our body needs. Maybe you might think of calling them whole foods or unprocessed foods or healthy foods or clean eating foods, whatever. You know what I'm talking about here. Generally speaking, these are the minimally processed foods and the foods you probably associate with eating healthy and being on a diet. And then, like I said, that little extra 7th food group is going to be things like sweets, potato chips, and like I said, those things that we call like junk food or treats or things like that. Okay, so we are going to get started. I want you to grab a pen and paper, and literally we're going to start brainstorming your 20 best foods for weight loss. Let's start with the high protein foods. And here I think it's really important to take a pause and just recognize why counting macros is such a helpful tool for you to determine how to meet your dietary needs. So many foods are a combination of the different macronutrients, right? We've got our proteins, carbs, and fats. Beans have carbs and protein. Potatoes have carbs and protein. Broccoli has fiber and protein. Fiber is not a macronutrient, but it is really, really, really important to your diet. So it's important to look at what foods are contributing to you hitting your fiber goals. Avocados have healthy fats and fiber. So when we categorize foods into these 6 food groups, we want to make sure that we're putting them into the category that they best fit in. So if someone's trying to convince you that nuts are a great source of protein, I'm really sorry to say this is simply not true. Peanut butter is not a, quote, good source of protein. Those are fat with a little bit of protein. So if you're unsure of how to categorize a food, then this is where tracking your food can be really, really helpful. You can just go into your tracker and say, oh, I'm having half a cup of black beans. And then you can look and see, oh, it's got this many carbs, it's got this much fiber, it's got this much protein. And I personally would count my beans as a starch. But maybe if you're vegan and a lot of your foods are, lower, you're not going to get as much protein in vegan foods as you do with meat-based foods. So maybe you are going to count beans as a protein for yourself. I am not vegan. I'm not a proponent of the vegan diet. I was raised vegetarian, and when you're vegetarian, you can have yogurt, eggs, cottage cheese, and high protein foods, that, yes, they come from an animal source. So vegan and vegetarian are 2 different things. And I do think that being vegan can make it harder to hit your protein goals. So I'm generally speaking, I'm talking to omnivores like me. I eat meat, I eat fish. I'll pretty much eat anything. And in my opinion, it is easier to eat a more balanced diet when you do include meat products, dairy, and those foods provide nutrition that our body needs. You may have a different opinion, but if that's the case, if you're vegan and you're looking for advice on a vegan diet, I'm probably not the coach for you, and there's probably someone else who might be better suited to, lead you down that path. But I know that when I have lived and tried to be vegan, I did not feel good. And now I understand why that is true. But it's just one of those things that, it's nuanced. And that's why understanding your macros and looking to see what is actually in the foods you're eating can be such a beneficial tool to figuring out how to actually fuel your body and nourish your body. Okay, it's going to be really crucial here for you to be honest, because that's how you're going to find your 20 best foods. So get out that pen and paper, and I just want you to make a little column that says high protein, okay? And then underneath that, I want you to brainstorm what are your favorite high protein foods. These are most likely going to be meat, fish, those types of foods that when you think of protein, this is what you're thinking of. The only caveat here is, remember, we're going to have a separate category for dairy, so I don't want you to write yogurt or cottage cheese or anything like that here, okay? But chicken, fish, beef, pork, eggs, egg whites, turkey, these are all things, that come to the top of my mind. So I'll share mine for each category just so you can get an idea. When I sat down and thought about it, I thought, okay, my absolute favorite high protein foods that I eat on a regular basis that help me hit my protein goals are salmon. I freaking love salmon. I sometimes eat salmon for breakfast. That is how much I love it. Beef, I've mentioned on here before. Chicken is something I struggle with. So beef, ground beef, I get a meat delivery every month from a local farm delivery service, and ground beef is a big part of what we order there. And then I really thought about it and I said, protein powder. I have protein powder at least once a day. It helps me hit my protein goal. It's delicious. And I would say that is a top 3 source of protein that I enjoy. Generally speaking, I would also say I'm from New England. Any type of seafood, scallops, clams, shrimp, lobster. I am down to eat seafood any day, anytime, but it is not something that I would say, is easily, readily available to me, but I absolutely love seafood. So my top picks are salmon, beef, and protein powder. So think of your 3. Maybe it's chicken, shrimp, and eggs. Maybe I have a friend that eats canned tuna, a ton. She loves it. So, what are those foods that you like? What are those foods that get eaten? What are those foods that every time you go to the store, you're like, oh, I need to get more of that because I definitely I bought it last week and it's all gone and I want more of it. This is what we're thinking about here when we're making our list. All right. You're getting it now, right? You're understanding the process here. So, next, let's talk about fats. Keeping in mind, we're looking for the healthy fats. My personal favorites are avocados, olive oil, and nuts. I eat nuts almost every day, just a small little handful. I eat avocado any chance that I possibly can get. And it is such a win when you cut it open and it is like perfect. I had one of those the other night. I made us salads and I cut open that avocado and I was so excited. Olive oil, I cook 99% of the time with olive oil. So think about it. What are your favorite healthy fats? Maybe yours is peanut butter. Maybe you love to have toast with peanut butter every day. Maybe you love to put peanut butter in your smoothie every day. Maybe you like avocado oil for cooking. Think about those healthy fats and write down those top 3. Okay. Now let's do vegetables. All right. And like I said, we're keeping the vegetable food group to leafy greens or cruciferous veggies. These are the veggies that are lower in calories, that they're really providing you a big bang of nutrition with lower calories. Mine are lettuce and leafy greens. I absolutely love salad. I could eat salad again, like every day. I pretty much eat some sort of salad almost every day. I also love broccoli. I always have broccoli in my freezer, and asparagus is my 3rd favorite. So think about the top 3. For me, veggies, it's a long list. Like, I love veggies. I always have a variety of veggies in my house. But if I had to narrow it down to the top 3, that's what it would be. It would be leafy greens, broccoli, and asparagus. That if I have those in my fridge, I know they're going to get eaten. To be honest, sometimes I get zucchini or something and it just kind of ends up sitting there. I don't know why that is, but this is why we're being honest here. Because if you think about the foods that sit and rot in your veggie drawer, then those are probably not actually a favorite food. Okay. Next, let's talk about starches. Mine are for sure jasmine rice, pasta, and beans. These are 3 foods I could eat every day, never get sick of them. But again, maybe yours are butternut squash, sweet potato, potatoes, and there's a huge variety of foods out there that could meet this criteria. Maybe you like quinoa, maybe you like brown rice, but what are those starches? Think of when you're eating dinner. What is that carbohydrate that's on there? Is it, you know what mine would be right now because it's July? Fresh, sweet summer corn, for sure. That's my top one right now. I'm going to say, okay, beans, maybe you're moving to number 4 on the list. Fresh corn right now, for sure, is my favorite starch. Okay, next let's talk about milk and dairy. Mine for sure are Oikos Pro yogurt because it gives you 20 grams of protein. They also have, if your grocery store doesn't have the Pro, Then they have the one with the 15 grams of protein. And I can't think, it has like a name. Is it Zero? Is it like Oikos Zero or something? Anyway, it has 15 grams of protein. I don't know why. I think it tastes different than the Oikos Pro. I prefer the Pro, but that's also another really great choice because you're getting 15 grams of protein per container. So, Oikos Pro yogurt, cheese, and sour cream are my favorite milk and dairy based foods. Sour cream, maybe it's a little bit more of a fat, but I'm going to give myself credit here for it being a milk based food that I really enjoy. And I'll have, 2 tablespoons on baked potato. I'm obviously putting that on my tacos and whatnot, but this is, we're getting calcium from these foods. I use shredded cheese all the time. That's a staple that I have in my refrigerator at all times. I don't drink milk. I've never drank milk. Again, I was raised in a household that was vegetarian, but also leaned towards vegan at times. So we never had milk in the refrigerator. And you do what you like here. If you really like cottage cheese, cottage cheese might be on the list for me. I do like cottage cheese. It just depends, how it's made. But yeah, milk, dairy, what are the 3 things that you enjoy from that food group? And if you do have a dairy allergy, there is Lactaid products. Some people can have yogurt, but cannot have straight up milk. So look at your options here. And then you can also look at maybe some of the nut-based milks that actually do give you a good serving of calcium and things like that. And honestly, if you have a dairy allergy, you probably are very well versed on what your best sources of calcium are. Okay, now we're going to move on to our final food group, which is fruits. And similar to the veggies, I have way more than 3 fruits that I love. And it really just depends on the time of year. But mangoes, grapes, and berries, I would say, are what I reach for on a regular basis. And then if I extend this idea of what are everyone's favorite foods in my family, that's how I create my grocery list. My husband and one of my sons, both of them eat a banana every single day, right? I know if I buy a watermelon, that is going to be gone instantly. All of us like grapes, all of us like berries. So it's not just about figuring out your favorites, it's also about thinking of your family and looking for those overlaps as well. Okay, finally, let's talk about our treats. And I want you to pick 2, and you can add those to your grocery list. For me, it's ice cream and baked goods. I love muffins. I love quick breads, things like that. And it was interesting when I sat down to do this, I did realize that I really only do include ice cream. Like ice cream for me, I've talked about on here before. I buy those little mini ice cream treats that are under 200 calories. I just bought the Magnum ice cream bars, and oh my gosh, those are amazing. They're so rich and so creamy and so flavorful that one mini bar is just, it totally hits the spot. I don't even want to go eat an entire bowl of ice cream after it. And I don't really think you need more than 2 of those types of foods on your list. It was really hard for me to even think of like what is the second type of treat that I really enjoy. I'm not a chips person. There could be a bag of potato chips in my pantry for a year and I would never touch it. It's just not my thing. I'm not into the savory treats. I have a sweet tooth. And I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I love the baked goods or pancakes and waffles. So I would say for me, that's where I create the room in my life for those, foods that might not be as calorie dense. But, I can even make pancakes with whole wheat flour and stuff, and I can hit my fiber goals with pancakes. So it's really just about making, it's like a puzzle. And how are you going to fit all these things together? And using macros is the key to figuring this out. So there you have it. I mean, how easy was that? You should have 3 foods written out for each of the 6 food groups. 6 times 3 is 18. And then 2 foods left over for your treats. And that makes your 20 best foods for reaching your goals. And guess what? There's your weekly grocery list. Guess what? There's your things that should be in your pantry, and build your meals around these foods. These are the best 20 foods for your goals. They're not necessarily the best foods for your neighbor or your partner or your best friend, right? But they are best for you. And we understand how to use macros, because macros will just be about adjusting your portion sizes of those same foods. You don't need to change the foods that you eat according to the goals that you're working towards. You don't need to change your foods around. All right. Are you annoyed with me? Are you like, well, if it was this easy, I would already be at my goal? I get it, right? Like, I totally understand how frustrating it can be because it sounds so simple, but there's so many so-called experts out there, and I'm using that word, sarcastically, but these experts are telling you that you need to eat organic, you need to only eat grass-fed meat, you need to be gluten-free, you need to be dairy-free. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of how this is over complicated. And what that does is it distracts you from focusing on what actually matters and what is realistic for you. If someone told me the only way I could get my goal body was to eat boiled chicken and peas, I'm telling you that's never going to happen. I don't like peas at all unless they are literally fresh from the farm, like picked that day. And I don't like boiled chicken. No, that is just not happening. And that for me highlights why there's such a problem with the food recommendations out there and people telling you this is how you lose weight, this is how you reach your goals, and they're over complicating it. Because if we don't like the foods that are on the so-called approved foods list of the diet we're following, we're going to buy them, we're going to get all excited, maybe we're going to make it a few days or a few weeks eating those foods even though we don't really like them, but we're not going to be able to do that for the long term. And if you are someone that's coming from a background of eating a lot of overly processed foods, I would say to you, give whole foods a try. I mean, when people say, oh, I don't like vegetables, I don't understand that. An eggplant does not taste like a tomato. An onion does not taste like butternut squash. I need someone to explain to me what that statement means. I don't like vegetables. I would say you've either not had them cooked in a way that tastes good, or you have not tried enough variety. It doesn't make sense to me. I have a kid who's picky. He loves raw onions. He eats asparagus. He eats peppers. We have found the vegetables that he enjoys, and he makes a concerted effort to eat those foods, right? If you are an adult, you know what? Part of being an adult is doing things that maybe we don't feel like doing, but we know is better for the greater good. So I really just encourage you to try different recipes. Don't be afraid to throw some sour cream or cheese in there to make it taste better. And if you're counting your macros, you can figure out what is the appropriate amount of sour cream, what is the appropriate amount of cheese, and throw it on there and see if it can help make things taste better. I'm a big fan of ranch dressing. Everything tastes better with ranch. And we have to stop with this all in or all out mentality, because I don't want to eat steamed zucchini and carrots. That sounds disgusting to me, but I will eat roasted zucchini and carrots because the flavor there is just going to be so much better. So this is it, your 20 best foods. I'm not going to get into the specifics of how to count your macros. If you are interested, then you really need to head down to the episode details, click on my 3-day macro kickstart challenge, and you'll get instant access to that, and that will help you get started. But right now, you already have your grocery list, right? There's also over 100 episodes here on this podcast for you to review, and I pretty much lay out the entire process over the course of these 100 episodes. So the information is there. It's just up to you to listen and start taking action along with that 3-day kickstart. I hope you took the time to write down your top 20 foods. And honestly, I bet you could get 30 or 40. And you're going to find success with building muscle and losing fat with those exact foods. It's just about building your formula for feeling your best. And it starts with your nutrition. And then we have to add on those core habits that are all part of the Feel Your Best formula. All right, I'm so thankful you took the time to listen today. If you could do me a huge favor and just take 10 seconds and leave me a review, a 5-star review, and let me know what you think of the podcast, I would love that. I'm going to be signing off, like I said, for the next month or so, but stay tuned as I will be making some short announcements here and there via the podcast channel. And make sure you are subscribed to my newsletter. Stay subscribed to the podcast. I appreciate you. And my biggest wish, my hope is that within these 100 plus episodes, is that at least one of them has helped you think of things differently, helped you move forward in your life, and that you are starting that process of finding your formula for feeling your best. Okay, I will see you back here with some big announcements, and I'm really excited for what I'm working on. So I hope you'll stick with me to see what that is. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you enjoyed the information and discussion we had here today, then make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you're serious about making changes with your nutrition and fitness, then you definitely want to join my weekly newsletter list as well. You can find the link below and more information in the episode details. That's all for today, and we will see you back here next week for a new episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast.